Serge Monast exhaled a plume of cigarette smoke, the haze curling around the dim light of his Quebec apartment. It was late 1993, and the room felt like a tomb, cluttered with yellowed newspapers, stacks of books by William Guy Carr, and a battered typewriter that hadn't seen a poem in years. At 48, Serge looked older than he should, his face etched with the strain of a man who'd spent decades chasing shadows. Once a journalist for local rags, once a dreamer in the social credit party, he now sat hunched over a table strewn with notes, his pen trembling as he scribbled. The phone call had come an hour ago, gravelly urgent from a payphone. "NASA's hiding something," the voice had said. "Holograms. Control. Check your mail." Then a click. Serge stubbed out his cigarette and lit another, his eyes darting to the window. Snow fell in lazy flakes beyond the glass, softening the edges of the industrial sprawl outside. He'd heard wild tips before, government plots, secret societies, but this one gnawed at him. Carr's books had warned of a new world order, a cabal bent on eroding faith and sovereignty. Was this it? He rummaged through a drawer, pulling out microfiche copies of NASA reports he'd swiped from a library archive months back. Laser experiments, atmospheric optics, dry stuff until now. The phone rang again, but he let it die. No chances tonight. Far south, in a sterile bunker beneath Langley, Virginia, Philip Kane leaned back in a leather chair, his sharp jaw set against the flicker of fluorescent lights. The CIA operative was a relic of the Cold War, ruthless, pragmatic, and unburdened by sentiment. Across the table sat Dr. Miriam Adler, a NASA engineer with a mind as precise as the lenses she designed. Her dark hair was pulled tight, her expression a mix of curiosity and unease. The world outside was fraying. 1993 had brought the Soviet collapse, Balkan Wars, and a restless globe unsure of its next master. Kane saw opportunity in chaos. Adler saw equations. "We've got the tools," Kane said, tapping a dossier labeled classified, inner circle. Mockingbird bent the media. MK Ultra bent minds. Why not bend reality itself? Adler arched an eyebrow. "You're talking about a spectacle. Something biblical or extraterrestrial." "Exactly," Kane replied. "A unified narrative. One event to herd them all." Adler slid a sketch across the table, a holographic projector, beams converging in the sky. "NASA's been testing this for satellites. Scale it up, pair it with frequencies, subliminals, and you could convince the world Jesus is back. Or Martians." Kane smirked. "Project Blue Beam. I like it." Serge's mailbox rattled as he pried it open, the cold biting his fingers. Inside was a plain envelope, no return address. He tore it open on the stairs, heart thudding. A grainy Polaroid slipped out, a glowing figure hovering over a desert, too perfect to be a mirage. With it, a memo fragment. "Blue Beam, Phase 1 Religious Destabilization." His breath caught. This wasn't just tech, it was a script. He stumbled back to his desk, flipping through Carr's pawns in the game. The old man had ranted about elites staging chaos to seize power. Could this be the how? Serge grabbed NASA's reports again, scanning for overlaps. Laser arrays, ionospheric manipulation. Pieces clicked, jagged and terrifying. He lit another cigarette, the ember flaring in the dark. This was bigger than a scoop. This was a war on truth, on God, on everything he'd fought for in his obscure columns and fringe rallies. He had to know more, had to tell someone. But who'd believe him without proof? The phone sat silent now, a taunting relic. He'd need more than whispers and photos. He'd need a voice. In Langley, Kane and Adler faced a holoscreen, projecting their pitch to the inner circle. 5 silhouettes, voices masked by static. "The world's a powder keg," Kane said. "Yugoslavia's bleeding, Russia's reeling. People want meaning. We give it to them on our terms." Adler chimed in clinical. "The tech's nascent but feasible. Holograms for visuals, low-frequency waves for suggestion. A global stage tailored by region, Christ here, aliens there." A silhouette rasped, "Purpose?" "Control," Kane answered. "Dissolve borders, faiths, dissent. One authority rises from the ashes." Another voice, "Risks?" "Leaks," Adler admitted. "It's theoretical now. We'd need years, decades maybe." "Start the framework," the first silhouette ordered. Adler builds the toys. Kane keeps it quiet. The screen blinked off. Kane leaned toward Adler. "No loose ends. Ever." She nodded, though her fingers tightened on her pen. Theoretical was safe, until it wasn't. Serge paced, smoke trailing him like a ghost. The memo burned in his mind. Religious destabilization. It wasn't just power, it was soul theft. He thought of his kids, asleep down the hall, innocent in a world about to be lied to. He couldn't sit on this. Richard Glenn's face flashed up. Host of Esoterism Experimental, a UFO nut with a cult following. Serge had met him once, traded theories over coffee. Glenn had a platform, a microphone. Risky, sure. Airing this would paint a target on his back. But silence was worse. He grabbed the phone, dialed. Richard? It's Monast. I've got something big. Can you get me on? Glenn's voice crackled, eager. How soon? Tomorrow, Serge said, glancing at the Polaroid. They won't bury this. Back in Langley, Kane's secure line buzzed. A junior agent's voice cut through. Sir, we intercepted a call. Quebec. Some journalist, Monast. He's asking questions. NASA-related. Kane's eyes narrowed. What's he got? Not clear yet. Mention holograms. Sounded unhinged. Track him, Kane snapped. Find his source. Adler's project stays dead to the world. He hung up, staring at the dossier. A nobody in Quebec shouldn't have mattered. But Kane knew better. Small sparks lit big fires. Serge hung up, adrenaline surging. Tomorrow, he'd shout it to the world. He stubbed out his cigarette, the butt joining a dozen others in the ashtray. Outside, snow thickened, muffling the night. He didn't see the black sedan idling across the street, its engine a faint hum in the storm. Serge Monast adjusted the collar of his worn jacket, the studio lights glaring down like judgmental eyes. It was 1994, and the set of Esoterism Experimental buzzed with low-budget chaos. Cables snaking across the floor, a backdrop of starry cardboard. Richard Glenn, all wild hair and wilder enthusiasm, clapped him on the shoulder. You're live in 5, Serge. Ready to shake the world. Serge nodded, though his gut churned. He'd barely slept, chain-smoking through the night to rehearse his words. The Polaroid and memo sat heavy in his pocket, proof of a nightmare he couldn't unsee. As the camera rolled, he lit a cigarette, screw the rules, and faced the lens. NASA and the CIA, he began, voice rough as gravel. They're building something called Project Blue Beam. Holograms, giant ones, to fake gods, aliens, whatever it takes. They'll project them in the sky, tear down every religion, every border, and herd us into a one-world government. He held up the photo, the glowing figure stark against the desert. This is their test. I've got more memos, plans. It's real. Smoke curled from his lips, his eyes burning with a mix of fear and defiance. The crew went silent, Glenn gaped. By the time the broadcast ended, Serge's words were racing across Quebec, then beyond, a spark in a dry forest. In Langley, Philip Kane stood in a war room, arms crossed, watching the grainy feed on a monitor. The Inner Circle's tech had pirated the signal minutes into Monast's rant. Kane's jaw tightened as Serge waved that damn Polaroid. Too close to their files, too specific. Dr. Miriam Adler sat beside him, her fingers drumming on a tablet. He's got fragments, she said, voice steady but sharp. The hologram bit's right, but he's guessing on the rest. Still, it's trouble. Kane didn't blink. He's got a source. Someone's talking. Maybe, Adler replied. Or he's a lucky lunatic. Either way, he's loud. Kane turned to an aide. Get me everything on this Monast. Now. Serge stepped out of the studio into a chill Quebec night, the buzz of adrenaline fading to exhaustion. His pamphlet, Project Blue Beam, NASA, had hit the streets that week, self-funded through his International Free Press Agency, a shoestring outfit of believers and oddballs. Fringe bookshops snapped it up. Radio hosts called for interviews. Some hailed him as a prophet, others laughed him off as a crackpot. He didn't care. Truth wasn't a popularity contest. But as he walked home, a click echoed from his phone, sharp and unnatural. He froze, glancing back. A shadow shifted near a street lamp, gone when he blinked. Later, in his apartment, he replayed the day. The line clicked again. He hung up fast, heart pounding. Across the continent, Adler stood in a New Mexico desert, goggles shielding her eyes from the dust. A hulking projector hummed, its lenses gleaming under a moonless sky. She tapped a console and light erupted, a shimmering UFO, 50 feet wide, hovering over the sand. It flickered, then stabilized, a perfect illusion. Locals miles away would swear they saw something that night, whispers echoing the UFO flaps of the 90s. Adler shut it down, satisfied but tense. The Inner Circle had watched via satellite, their voices crackling through her earpiece. Impressive, one said. Can it scale? With time, she answered. And funding. Another voice cut in Kane's. Monast's forcing our hand. We move this up, make it real. Adler hesitated. It's not ready. We'd be gambling. We're past theory, Kane snapped. He's lit a match. Serge slumped at his kitchen table, a fresh cigarette trembling between his fingers. The pamphlet's ink still stained his hands, a badge of his war. His kids slept down the hall, 2 girls too young for this mess. He'd pulled them from school months back, teaching them himself, shielding them from a system he no longer trusted. Now, that choice felt like a beacon for whoever was watching. A car idled outside, its engine a low growl through the walls. He peered through the blinds, black sedan, lights off. It rolled away slow, deliberate. Serge crushed his cigarette into the ashtray, ash scattering. They were closing in, he felt it. But he wouldn't stop. Not now. Kane paced the Langley War Room, a dossier on Monast open before him. Journalist, poet, agitator, Quebec nobody with a stubborn streak. He's a gnat, an aide said, shrugging. Let him buzz. No, Kane shot back. He's a leak waiting to burst. We plug it. He turned to Adler, who'd just arrived, her coat dusted with desert sand. Your toy's a go. Refine it faster. Adler frowned. Pushing it risks exposure. He's already got people looking. Then we muddy the water, Kane said. Plant stories, make him a kook, a drunk. Buy us time. Adler nodded, though her gut twisted. She'd signed up for science, not this. But the inner circle's orders were iron, and Kane's stare was colder. Serge lit another cigarette, the flame briefly lighting his hollowed face. He'd vowed to protect his family, to keep digging. The TV appearance was just the start. He'd flood the airwaves, the streets, until someone listened. But the clicks, the shadows, they gnawed at him. He pulled the memo from his pocket, rereading religious destabilization. It wasn't just about control. It was about erasing what made people human. He'd fight that with every breath, even if it killed him. In Langley, Kane hung up a secure line, his orders dispatched. Agents would tail Monast, tap his life, seed doubt in his wake. Adler sat alone, staring at a blueprint of the projector. The New Mexico test had worked, too well. She saw the future in its glow. Skies alive with lies, a world bent to their will. She pushed the thought down, focusing on the math. Kane wanted speed, she'd deliver. But Monast's voice lingered, a ghost in the machine. Serge Monast stood in the rain outside his Quebec apartment, fists clenched, watching a government van peel away. It was September 1996, and the state had just taken his daughters. Hauled off over homeschooling violations, they'd said. Bullshit. Serge knew retaliation when he saw it. At 51, he felt every year in his bones, but the fire in his gut burned hotter than ever. 2 years of preaching Project Blue Beam, TV spots, pamphlets, sleepless nights, had made him a target. He lit a cigarette, the flames sputtering in the damp, and trudged inside. A note waited on his table, slipped under the door. Groom Lake. 37 degrees 14 minutes north, 115 degrees 49 minutes west. Check the dates. No signature. His pulse quickened, a new source, and this one had guts. In a Cincinnati control room, Dr. Miriam Adler adjusted a headset, her voice calm as she guided a team through a test. Projectors on now. High above Ohio, a faint shimmer bloomed, a radiant figure, winged and ghostly, hovering in the dusk. Locals would later call it an angel, a UFO, a glitch in the sky. Adler knew it was her work. The inner circle watched via encrypted feed, silent until Philip Kane's voice cut in. Scale? Regional, Adler said. Not global yet. Good enough, Kane replied. Monast got a new leak. He's pushing us. Adler's stomach sank. What's he know? Too much, Kane said. Coordinates. Test sites. Serge hunched over his desk, rain drumming the window. The note's coordinates pointed to Groom Lake, Area 51, the conspiracy mecca. He cross-checked them with a Gulf War tech rumor he'd chased in '91. Whispers of laser arrays tested in Nevada, dismissed as fiction. Now they aligned. His new source, a jittery CIA analyst he'd met in a diner, had dropped more. A Blue Beam dry run scheduled soon. Serge scribbled furiously, tying it to his growing file. 5G towers as signal relays, vaccine trials as cover for mind control tech. Wild maybe, but the pieces fit. He'd seen the sedan again last night, parked closer. They weren't even hiding anymore. Adler shut down the Ohio test, the figure fading as drones dispersed. The inner circle convened, their silhouettes stark on her screen. Monast's a problem, one rasped. He's got dates now, ours? Possibly, Kane admitted. A rogue analyst flipped. We're tracing. End it, another said. He's forcing our timeline. Kane leaned forward. I've got a solution. Psychotronic pulse, heart failure untraceable. MK Ultra toy dusted off. Adler flinched. That's murder, not containment. It's necessity, Kane snapped. He's a dead man talking. The circle voted, 4-1. Adler's dissent didn't matter. Serge chain-smoked, drafting his final exposé. The analyst had sketched a timeline. Tests in 96, rollout by 2020 if chaos peaked. He wove in Ohio's Angel sighting, fresh from a fringe radio call-in, claiming it as Blue Beam's rehearsal. His hands shook, not from nicotine but dread. His kids were gone, his phone tapped, his life a thread. He flipped on a camcorder, the red light blinking. This is Serge Monast, he rasped, holding up the note. They're staging it, Sky shows mind games. Coordinates prove it. If I'm gone, this is why. He stopped the tape, ejected it, and scrawled Glenn on the case. Richard would know what to do. Kane stood in a Langley sublevel, a tech sliding him a slim device, black, sleek, humming faintly. Range? Kane asked. 1/2 mile, the tech said. Targets the heart. Looks natural. Kane pocketed it. Monast's address? Quebec. We've got eyes on him. Adler entered, her face tight. You're sure about this? He's a spark in a gas leak, Kane said. One call, and he's got the world digging. We can't risk it. And if he's right, she pressed. If we're the monsters he says? Kane's eyes were stone. We're the order they'll thank later. Adler turned away, her silence louder than words. Serge sealed the tape in an envelope, the rain now a dull roar. He'd drop it with Glenn tomorrow, his last shot. The analyst had begged him to run, but where? This was his fight for his girls, for everyone. He lit another cigarette, coughing hard. Too many, too fast. The sedan's headlights flashed through his blinds, brief, deliberate. A warning. He crushed the butt, ash smearing his fingers. They'd come soon. He felt it in his chest, a weight beyond smoke. But he'd be ready. In Cincinnati, Adler reviewed the Ohio data, her screen glowing with telemetry. The test had worked, too well. Kane's plan gnawed at her. She'd built projectors, not weapons, holograms, not graves. Yet the inner circle's vote bound her. She pulled up Monast's broadcast, 2 years old, grainy, fervent. They'll fake gods, he'd said, eyes wild. She saw truth in them, warped but real. Kane's voice crackled through her calm. It's set. Tomorrow. Adler shut off the screen. He's just one man. Not anymore, Kane said. He's a symbol. Serge taped his notes together, coordinates, dates, theories, stuffing them into a drawer. The camcorder tape sat by his keys, his lifeline. He glanced at his daughter's empty beds, a pang cutting through him. They'd taken them to silence him, but it had only made him louder. He'd get them back somehow. The phone rang once, twice, then stopped. Another signal. He grabbed a pen, wrote a final line. If I die, it's them. Then he waited, the storm outside mirroring the one within. Serge Monast trudged through Quebec's gray dawn, the camcorder tape a lead weight in his coat pocket. It was December 5th, 1996, and the air bit with a chill that matched the ache in his chest. He'd arranged to meet Richard Glenn at a diner near the studio. Neutral ground, public enough to feel safe. His fingers fumbled for a cigarette, but the pack was empty. He cursed under his breath, the taste of ash still thick from last night's chain smoking. The envelope with the tape pressed against his ribs, it scribbled Glenn a lifeline. He'd slept an hour, maybe 2, haunted by the sedan's headlights and the note he'd left. If I die, it's them. Now, he just had to hand it off. In a safe house 2 miles away, Philip Kane stood by a window, the city's rooftops smudged with snow. He turned the psychotronic device over in his hand, black, compact, its hum a faint pulse against his palm. The tech had briefed him. 1/2 mile range, cardiac disruption, clean as a natural death. Kane's face was a mask, carved from years of burying doubts. Agents in a van tracked Monast's route, their voices crackling through his earpiece. He's moving. Diner on Rue Saint-Jean. Kane nodded. Activate when he's clear of the meat. No witnesses. Dr. Miriam Adler's voice cut in from Cincinnati, remote but tense. You're sure it'll hold up? It's tested, Kane said. He's 51. Heart attack fits. Serge slid into a booth, the diner's warmth a brief reprieve. Glenn arrived minutes later, wild-eyed and clutching a coffee. You look like hell, Glenn said, sliding the cup over. Feel it, Serge rasped, shoving the envelope across the table. This is it, my last shot. Coordinates, dates, everything. They're staging Ohio now, prepping the big one. Air it if I don't make it. Glenn palmed the tape, frowning. You're spooked worse than usual. They took my girls, Serge said, voice cracking. They're circling. I'm done running. Glenn nodded, pocketing it. I'll keep it safe. You watch yourself. Serge stood, a dull ache blooming in his chest. Stress, he thought, brushing it off. Just get it out there. Kane watched a monitor, Monast's grainy figure exiting the diner on a live feed. He's alone, an agent reported. Heading home. Do it, Kane ordered, slipping the device into a case. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the screen. The van crept closer, a shadow in the morning haze. Adler's voice flickered through again. If this leaks. It won't, Kane cut her off. He's a ghost by noon. She didn't reply. Kane heard her breathing, heavy with something unsaid, then the line went dead. Serge shuffled down a side street, the ache sharpening into a stab. He paused, leaning against a lamppost, breath fogging in short gasps. Too young for this, he thought, but the smokes, the stress, maybe not. His apartment loomed a block away, its windows dark. He clutched his coat, the blue beam notes still tucked inside from last night's frantic packing. The tape was with Glenn, that was enough. He pushed off the post, legs heavy, and stumbled forward. A black sedan idled at the corner, exhaust curling like smoke. His vision blurred, pain spiking. They got me, he muttered, half to himself, half to the empty street. In the safe house, Kane's monitor showed Monast falter. The agent's voice was flat, pulse active. He's down in seconds. Kane watched, unblinking, as Serge crumpled near his doorstep, papers spilling from his coat. A passerby shouted, medics swarmed minutes later, too late. The screen cut to static, then a news ticker. Quebec journalist dead at 51. Suspected heart attack. Kane exhaled, the device silent in its case. Clean, he said to the room. Erase the logs. Adler patched in, her tone brittle. It's done. Done, Kane confirmed. You're clear. She hung up, and Kane pictured her in Cincinnati, staring at her projectors, knowing what they'd cost. Serge's body hit the pavement, cold seeping through his coat. His last breath rattled out, a faint gurgle's on his lips. Papers fluttered free, coordinates, theories, scrawled warnings. Caught by the wind, then trampled by boots as paramedics knelt. They found no pulse, no fight left. The sedan rolled away, unnoticed in the chaos. Inside his apartment, the drawer held more, his final note untouched. Hours later, the coroner would call it natural, a smoker's end at 51. But the tape was out there, ticking like a bomb. Adler sat in her lab, the Ohio test footage looping on a screen, a glowing figure, now a murderer's shadow. Monast's death hit the news, his face frozen in that old broadcast, wild, alive, accusing. She shut it off, hands trembling. The inner circle convened, Kane's voice dominating. He's gone. Blue beams buried for now. A silhouette rasped, his followers? Growing, Kane admitted. Glenn's got something, a tape maybe. We'll discredit it. Adler spoke up, quiet. He's a martyr now. That's harder to kill. Manageable, Kane said. We wait, rebuild. Chaos will call us back. The circle disbanded, leaving Adler alone. She stared at the projector blueprints, her creation turned weapon. Monast had been right, too right. Glenn clutched the tape in his studio, news of Serge's death still raw. He slotted it into a player, Serge's voice crackling to life. They're staging it, sky shows, mind games. Glenn's hands shook as he dubbed copies. Days later, he aired it, unedited, to a stunned audience. The broadcast spread, radio, pamphlets, whispers, igniting theories of murder. Serge's name grew, a ghost louder than the man. Kane watched from Langley, jaw tight. He's dead, he muttered, but not quiet. The inner circle paused blue beam, its shadow lingering, waiting. The grainy video flickered across X in March 2025, Serge Monast's hollowed face staring out from a past long buried. They're staging it, sky shows, mind games, his voice rasped, the camcorder tape now a relic reborn. Nearly 30 years after his death, the clip, first aired by Richard Glenn in '96, had clawed its way back, boosted by a wave of unease. Ohio's drone sightings from December 2024, swarms of lights buzzing over Columbus, matched Serge's blue beam, too eerily for comfort. Posts linked them to 5G towers, COVID vaccine fears, even grainy clips of that '96 Ohio angel. Truthers crowned him a prophet. His name trended with hashtags like #Monast was right. In Quebec, a vigil lit candles by his old apartment, a shrine to a ghost who wouldn't fade. In a Virginia cabin, Dr. Miriam Adler, gray-haired, retired, uploaded a cryptic PDF to a dark web forum. Titled Reflections on Light, it hinted at Blue Beam's truth. Holograms tested, a journalist silenced. She'd walked away from NASA after '96, haunted by Serge's collapse on that snowy street. Now, with Ohio's drones stirring the pot, she'd had enough of silence. Philip Kane, semi-retired in a D.C. penthouse, caught wind of her leak on a secure line. Lunacy, he told a former aide, voice clipped. She's senile. The aide hesitated. X says otherwise. That tape's viral. Coordinates match old test logs. Kane's grip tightened on his glass. Bury it. Protests flared in Montreal, placards waving Serge's face beside slogans. No sky lies. Hackers, calling themselves Monast's Echo, cracked a NASA server, dumping files online. Logs from 96 listed Groom Lake tests, projector specs, even a redacted memo with Blue Beam in the margins. The data was old, fragmented, but it sang Serge's tune. X threads tied it to 5G signal spikes, claiming mind control waves were live. Others dredged up COVID conspiracies, vaccines as Blue Beam prep, nanotech trackers. Mainstream news scoffed, calling it fringe noise, but the streets hummed with doubt. Glenn, now frail, re-aired the tape on a podcast, his voice trembling. Serge died for this. They killed him. Kane paced his penthouse, a disinformation team on speed dial. Flood it, he ordered. Fake leaks, doctored logs, make Monast a laughingstock again. Posts sprouted overnight. Serge is a drunk, a fraud, his death a sad fluke. But Adler's leak fought back. An anonymous audio dropped, her voice unmistakable to Kane. December '96. Quebec. We used a pulse device. He was right. The confession hit X like a shockwave, cracking Kane's facade. Protesters chanted outside Langley, signs reading who killed Serge? The inner circle, long dissolved, left Kane alone to face the storm. Serge's legacy split the world. In Ohio, drone watchers swore the lights pulsed with intent. Blue Beam's echo, they said. Skeptics blamed hobbyists, weather balloons, anything but conspiracy. In Quebec, a university archived his pamphlets, scholars debating his prescience. His daughters, now grown, spoke at a rally. Dad saw it coming. He gave everything. The tape looped online, Serge's gaunt face a mirror for a society teetering between truth and control. Hackers vowed more leaks, promising NASA's full vault. The air felt charged, as if the sky itself might crack open. Adler vanished after her leak, her cabin empty when feds knocked. Rumors placed her in hiding, Canada, maybe, or deeper underground. Kane watched his empire fray, the disinformation barely denting Serge's surge. A final call from an old circle voice. You let it slip. It was buried, Kane snapped. Adler, your mess now, the voice cut off. Kane sank into his chair, staring at a muted TV. X scrolled with Serge's words, a tide he couldn't stem. Then a flicker. CNN reported a light over Quebec, pulsing unexplained. Kane's glass slipped, shattering on the floor. The light hung low that night, a soft glow above Serge's old street. Witnesses swore it shimmered like a hologram. Christ, an alien, a trick, depending who you asked. Drones, officials said, but no one found them. X erupted, Blue Beam's here. Others called it a tribute, a fluke of clouds and street lamps. In Montreal, the vigil grew, candles flickering under that strange sky. Serge's daughters watched, silent, their father's warning alive in the air. The world held its breath. Some braced for deception, others dismissed it, but all felt the weight of a lie too big to kill. Kane faded into obscurity, a footnote in a story he'd lost. Adler's fate stayed a mystery, her leak the spark that burned the shadows away. NASA stonewalled, denying everything, but the files lingered, a digital scar. Serge Monast, dead at 51, loomed larger than ever, a poet turned prophet, his voice echoing through decades. The light over Quebec faded by dawn, leaving questions no one could answer. Coincidence, harbinger, or something more? The sky stayed silent, but the world didn't.